This video is not intended to persuade anyone to become a Buddhist or to promote any religious belief. Mr. Khổng sole purpose is to share a historical story and a philosophical tradition that we believe offers valuable insights worth exploring, because our knowledge and research are inevitably limited. Our production team cannot fully capture every aspect of the Buddha's life and teachings, especially the differences among the various Buddhist traditions. We sincerely welcome respectful and constructive feedback to help us improve the quality and accuracy of our content. More importantly, we encourage you not to rely solely on our channel for information. Take the time to explore multiple reliable sources so you can develop a well-rounded understanding of any subject that interests you. The Buddha taught that every person creates their own karma and is responsible for making themselves either pure or impure. No one can bear another person's mistakes or erase them on their behalf. Each individual is accountable for their own actions. This is one of the defining principles of Buddhist philosophy. The path to liberation does not depend on a supreme being granting favor or salvation through prayer. The Buddha showed the way, but walking that path is the responsibility of each individual. Those who study Buddhism are encouraged to cultivate moral character, develop wisdom, and practice diligently in order to transform themselves. In today's video, join Mr. Khổng as we explore the profound lessons drawn from the Buddhist journey in search of truth and ultimate enlightenment. Part 1. The childhood of Prince Siddhartha in the 6th century BC. In the region of Lumbini, near the present-day border between Nepal and India, a prince was born. His name was Siddhartha, the man who would later become known throughout the world as the Buddha. He was the son of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya, members of the Shakya clan, a powerful ruling family based in the capital city of Kapilavastu, located in what is now southern Nepal. According to Buddhist tradition, before giving birth to the prince, Queen Maya experienced an extraordinary dream. She saw a magnificent white elephant with 6 tusks descending from the heavens, accompanied by sacred music. Carrying a pink lotus flower in its trunk, the elephant gently touched her before disappearing. When she awoke, she recounted the dream to the king. King Suddhodana immediately summoned learned Brahmin priests and respected sages to interpret its meaning. After hearing the queen's account, they all reached the same conclusion: the child about to be born would be an extraordinary individual. If he inherited the throne, he would become a great and righteous king. But if he renounced royal life, he would attain enlightenment and become a spiritual guide for countless people. On the full moon day of the following April, while traveling to her parents' home in accordance with the custom of the time, Queen Maya stopped to rest in the beautiful Lumbini Garden. Surrounded by blooming flowers, she reached out to grasp the branch of a sal tree and gave birth to the prince. Her attendants carefully wrapped the newborn in golden silk before escorting mother and child back to Kapilavastu. The joyful news filled King Suddhodana with immense happiness. He named his son Siddhartha, meaning one who achieves all noble aspirations. Soon afterward, many astrologers and wise men were invited to the palace to examine the prince's destiny. Among them was the revered sage Asita. Upon seeing the infant, Asita was overcome with emotion and burst into tears, declaring that this prince would one day become a fully enlightened being who would comprehend the deepest truths of the universe. After delivering his prophecy, Asita continued by saying that the prince would never become an earthly monarch. Instead, he would abandon the throne to seek ultimate truth, regarding heaven and earth as his homeland and all living beings as his family. The old sage wept because he knew he would not live long enough to hear the teachings of this future enlightened one. To him, the prince's birth was the greatest blessing ever bestowed upon the kingdom. These words deeply troubled King Suddhodana. He had always hoped his son would inherit the throne and build a powerful kingdom. From that moment forward, he became determined to raise the young prince as a future ruler. Only 8 days after giving birth, Queen Maya passed away. Her younger sister, Siddhartha Gautama, entered the royal palace and lovingly raised Siddhartha as her own daughter. At the age of 9, Prince Siddhartha accompanied his father to the annual royal plowing ceremony. As he watched exhausted farmers labor in the fields, oxen straining under heavy plows, and tiny creatures being injured by the blades cutting through the earth, the young prince quietly left the crowd. He sat beneath a rose apple tree in silent contemplation. Witnessing this, King Suddhodana became increasingly uneasy, sensing that the ancient prophecy might one day come true. When Siddhartha reached adulthood, the king sought to anchor him firmly to royal life. A grand ceremony was arranged, and the prince married Princess Yasodhara, the daughter of a neighboring king. Their wedding took place when Siddhartha was about 24 years old, hoping his son would remain devoted to a life of luxury. King Suddhodana ordered the construction of 3 magnificent palaces, one each for summer, winter, and the rainy season. Lavishly decorated and surrounded by gardens, ponds, and towering walls, each palace formed a secluded world, almost entirely isolated from the realities of ordinary life. Within the palace, music, dancing, and lavish banquets filled each day. The attendants were young women chosen for their beauty and grace. Anyone who became ill, as well as anything that showed signs of decay or withering, was immediately removed from the prince's sight so that he would never witness suffering, sickness, old age, or death. For many years, Siddhartha lived in complete comfort and abundance. King Suddhodana believed that if his son never encountered aging, illness, or human suffering, he would never consider leaving the royal palace behind. By the age of 29, after the birth of his first son, Siddhartha asked his father, the king, for permission to leave the royal city and observe the lives of his people with his own eyes. Believing this would help prepare the crown prince to one day rule the kingdom, King Suddhodana granted his request. Part 2. The 4 journeys beyond the Palaceto shield the crown prince from the hardships of ordinary life. King Suddhodana ordered the streets to be cleaned, decorated, and carefully prepared each time Siddhartha left the palace. Guards and attendants accompanied the procession to ensure that everything appeared flawless. Yet during his very first journey, Siddhartha encountered an elderly man with silver hair, a bent back, and slow, trembling steps. Curious, the prince asked about the man's condition. Channa, his loyal attendant, explained that old age is a fate no one can escape. Whether rich or poor, noble or common, every human being eventually grows weak with the passage of time. On his second journey, Siddhartha saw a man suffering terribly from illness. Channa explained that sickness can strike anyone, and no amount of wealth or power can spare a person from physical pain and disease. During the third excursion, despite even stricter preparations, the prince witnessed a funeral procession. For the first time, he fully understood that every life must one day come to an end. People are born, they grow, they experience joy and sorrow, yet none can escape the universal realities of aging, illness, and death. These 3 encounters deeply troubled Siddhartha. He began to wonder, if all worldly happiness is so fragile, and everyone must face birth, aging, sickness, and death, could there be a path that leads beyond suffering? On his 4th journey, the prince met a wandering ascetic calmly carrying an alms bowl. When Siddhartha asked why he had chosen such a life, the monk replied that he had renounced worldly desires in search of ultimate truth, hoping to free himself from suffering and help others escape the endless cycle of birth and death. His only goal was to attain genuine and lasting happiness. Those words touched Siddhartha's heart. At that moment, he realized that the path meant for him was not the royal throne, but the lifelong pursuit of enlightenment. When Siddhartha expressed his desire to renounce worldly life, King Suddhodana firmly objected, hoping his son would remain and inherit the throne. The prince calmly replied that he would abandon his intention only if the king could grant him 4 gifts: that he would never grow old, never fall ill, never die, and never experience suffering. These were blessings that no earthly king could possibly bestow. Faced with his son's unwavering determination, King Suddhodana could offer no promise capable of overcoming old age, sickness, death, or suffering. Siddhartha then respectfully answered that if no one could protect humanity from these realities, he must set out on his own to seek the answer. He refused to spend his life confined within palace walls, imprisoned by luxury and power. That very night, Siddhartha quietly looked upon his wife and infant son one last time. Accompanied by his faithful servant Channa and his beloved horse Kanthaka, he left the royal palace and began his journey in search of the ultimate truth. When they reached the banks of the Anoma River, Siddhartha bid farewell to Channa. He cut off his own hair and handed over his sword, royal ornaments, and every symbol of his princely status to be returned to the palace. He then exchanged clothes with a hunter and put on the simple robes of an ascetic. From that moment forward, his life as a spiritual seeker truly began. Siddhartha meditated beneath the shade of a tree until the sun stood high in the sky before continuing his journey. Over the following years, he sought instruction from the two most renowned spiritual teachers of his time, Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta. Both were regarded as masters who had attained the highest levels of meditative absorption. At Alara Kalama's hermitage, Siddhartha learned the discipline of an ascetic. He practiced collecting alms, maintaining proper conduct, receiving offerings with gratitude, and training the mind through mindful breathing and unwavering concentration. His teacher explained that anyone wishing to attain profound meditation must let go of attachment to both the past and the future. Focusing entirely on liberation, with extraordinary determination, Siddhartha progressed rapidly. He carefully observed every breath until his mind became completely calm. As his concentration deepened, awareness of the outside world gradually faded, replaced by a profound peace and stillness unlike anything he had ever experienced. Continuing his diligent practice, he entered even deeper states of meditation, where all streams of thought became silent and feelings of pleasure and sorrow disappeared. In those states, the senses were scarcely influenced by the external world, leaving only the pure concentration of consciousness itself. After mastering the initial stages of meditation, Siddhartha received instruction from Alara Kalama in a higher meditative attainment known as the sphere of infinite space. In this state, the practitioner abandons all perception of physical form and material existence, allowing the mind to merge with boundless space. Following his teacher's guidance, Siddhartha released his attachment even to the breath and focused solely on the radiance of the mind. Within only a few days, he entered a state in which all sense of self and the surrounding world seemed to dissolve into infinite space. Yet when he returned to ordinary awareness, he realized that his deepest questions about birth and death remained unanswered. Recognizing that his student had not yet found what he sought, Alara Kalama encouraged him to advance to the sphere of infinite consciousness. According to the master, when the mind is no longer limited, consciousness itself becomes boundless. In a remarkably short time, Siddhartha attained this meditative state as well. Although the experience was even more profound than before, he still felt that the fundamental problem of human suffering had not been resolved. Therefore, his teacher instructed him to contemplate the insubstantial nature of all phenomena in order to reach the sphere of nothingness, a state in which every attachment and clinging completely disappears. Less than a month later, Siddhartha attained the same state of realization. Yet whenever he emerged from meditation, the same questions about suffering and death returned to his mind. Although Alara Kalama invited him to remain and help lead the community of ascetics, Siddhartha respectfully declined. He understood that, valuable as these attainments were, they did not represent the path to complete liberation. He then sought out the teacher Uddaka Ramaputta, who was renowned for teaching the meditative state known as the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. The teacher explained that to transcend all attachment, a practitioner must let go of even the subtlest perceptions of self and the world, allowing the mind to rise beyond every concept of existence and non-existence. With his extraordinary capacity for practice, Siddhartha quickly mastered this highest level of meditation. In that state, the mind became almost perfectly still, far beyond ordinary awareness. Yet when he left meditation, he realized that he was still subject to the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Meditation brought profound tranquility, but it was not yet the key to ultimate truth. Once again, Uddaka Ramaputta invited Siddhartha to remain as his successor and lead the spiritual community. Once again, Siddhartha gently declined. After years of studying under the greatest teachers of his time, he realized that the path he sought could no longer be found by following another's guidance. he would have to discover the truth through his own direct experience. After many years of learning without finding an answer to the suffering of humanity, Siddhartha resolved to seek the truth on his own. He left the meditation centers and journeyed westward, crossing fields, marshes, and streams until he reached the forest of Uruvela, a place filled with secluded caves ideal for spiritual practice. There, he began experimenting with an entirely different approach: severe asceticism. Earlier in his travels, Siddhartha had encountered ascetics who survived only on roots and forest leaves while exposing themselves to the harsh elements. At first, he believed that self-mortification merely created more suffering. Yet in his determination to uncover the truth, he chose to experience it firsthand. He reasoned that as long as the body remained under the influence of desire, the mind could never attain true freedom. So Siddhartha gradually reduced his food intake, endured every hardship, and subjected himself to an extremely harsh way of life. After 6 years, his body had become little more than skin and bones. His hair had fallen out, and nearly all of his strength was gone. One day, while meditating in a cremation ground at the foot of a mountain, Siddhartha suddenly realized that this path of extreme self-denial could never lead to enlightenment. He understood that body and mind are inseparably connected. To damage the body is also to weaken the mind. His memory carried him back to childhood, when at the age of 9 he had quietly sat beneath the shade of a rose apple tree during the annual plowing festival. In that moment, he had experienced a natural, pure, and effortless peace. He also remembered his earliest meditation practices, when his mind had been calm without becoming detached from life itself. From these experiences, Siddhartha realized that genuine inner happiness is neither the pleasure born of power and material possessions nor the result of tormenting the body. Even the profound formless states of meditation could not resolve the fundamental problem of birth and death. At last, he understood that neither indulgence in pleasure nor extreme self-mortification was the right path. Only the middle way, a life of balance and moderation, maintaining harmony between body and mind, could provide the foundation for attaining enlightenment. Having realized this truth, Siddhartha abandoned the practice of severe asceticism, left the cave, and moved to a peaceful grove beside a river to continue his search for ultimate liberation. Part 3. The Night of Enlightenment. Beneath the Bodhi tree. Beneath the canopy of the Bodhi tree, Siddhartha entered deep meditation with an unshakable vow. If he did not discover the truth that leads to liberation, he would not leave that seat, even at the cost of his own life. According to Buddhist tradition, Mara, the embodiment of craving, temptation, and ignorance, did everything possible to prevent his awakening. First came violent storms, thunder, and fierce winds. Yet amid the chaos, the place where Siddhartha sat remained perfectly calm, as though protected by the power of his meditation. Unable to break Siddhartha's determination, Mara then unleashed countless demonic armies against him. Arrows and weapons flew through the air, but as they approached Siddhartha, each one transformed into a lotus blossom that drifted gently to the ground. Finally, Mara resorted to the temptation of sensual desire. Beautiful and alluring visions appeared before Siddhartha in an attempt to disturb the mind of the seeker. Yet Siddhartha remained completely unmoved, preserving the purity and serenity of his mind in the face of every temptation. When every strategy had failed, Mara issued one final challenge, demanding to know what proof Siddhartha had that he was worthy of attaining enlightenment. Instead of answering with words, Siddhartha calmly reached down and touched the earth with his hand. This gesture symbolized his calling upon the earth itself to bear witness to the countless lifetimes he had devoted to cultivating compassion, patience, and the unwavering determination to discover a path that could end suffering. Faced with this silent testimony, Mara could only withdraw and disappear. As every obstacle dissolved, Siddhartha's mind became clearer and more peaceful than ever before. In the depth of meditation, he recalled countless previous lives, perceiving the continuous journey of existence across many lifetimes. Death was no longer seen as an absolute ending, but as a transition within the ongoing flow of life. This was the first great realization, known in Buddhist scriptures as the knowledge of past lives. Continuing his contemplation, he realized that the entire universe functions through an intricate web of causes and conditions. From the tiniest speck of dust to the stars shining across the heavens, nothing exists independently. Everything relies upon and influences everything else. All phenomena arise and pass away, constantly changing, yet their ultimate nature is not confined by those changes. This profound realization became known as the knowledge of the end of defilements. As the night slowly gave way to dawn, Siddhartha turned his attention to the very origin of suffering. He saw that all beings, from ordinary people to kings and nobles, relentlessly pursue desires in the hope of finding happiness. Yet because they fail to understand the impermanent nature of life, they become consumed by greed, competition, and conflict, often causing harm to one another. It is this attachment and ignorance that keeps humanity trapped in the endless cycle of gain and loss, joy and sorrow, never finding lasting peace. Through deep insight, Siddhartha realized that only by truly understanding the nature of reality can people let go of suffering. Genuine understanding not only gives rise to wisdom but also awakens compassion. In his view, wisdom and compassion are inseparable. Without true understanding, love and compassion can never reach their fullest expression. When he looked deeply into the reasons people commit harmful actions, Siddhartha no longer felt resentment. Instead, his heart was filled with compassion. That compassion became the driving force behind helping others transform themselves and create a better way of life. He also discovered that attaining wisdom requires living with mindful awareness in every moment. When people maintain mindfulness, they clearly perceive what is happening within themselves as well as in the world around them. The more deeply they observe, the more clearly the true nature of all things is revealed. From this realization, Siddhartha taught a path of practice consisting of 8 essential principles: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This path, known as the Noble Eightfold Path, serves as the foundation for liberation from suffering and the attainment of enlightenment. On the night of his awakening, Siddhartha's wisdom reached its complete fulfillment. He perceived the thoughts of all beings, understood the law of karma, saw the continuity of countless lives, and recognized the interconnectedness of everything in the universe. Above all, he realized that the root of all suffering is ignorance, a fundamental misunderstanding of oneself and the true nature of reality. When ignorance governs the mind, people become trapped in opposites such as gain and loss, existence and non-existence. From these attachments arise craving, clinging, and the endless cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Freedom from this cycle can only be achieved by dispelling ignorance through wisdom and by faithfully practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. At that moment, Siddhartha became the Buddha, the awakened one. His teachings affirm that every person possesses the potential to awaken, because the seed of enlightenment already exists within every heart. It is merely concealed by ignorance and attachment. The Buddha's journey reminds us that spiritual practice is not about escaping life, but about understanding ourselves, mastering our desires, cultivating mindfulness, and living with compassion. As Emperor Tang beautifully expressed, the mountain itself holds no Buddha. The Buddha is within the mind. When the mind is tranquil and luminous, there is the true Buddha. We hope this story has inspired you to discover peace and wisdom within yourself. If you found this video meaningful, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one.